Hi, I'm AV and you're watching the Backbeat Experience.
All music is the same. It's just a new set of lyrics and a new backbeat.
So, AndreGraziadei for the Backbeat Experience here today in a chat with Canadian artist Vriend. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
No worries.
You're a little under the weather these days, but
I'm getting better.
You're getting better.
Yeah.
Good. It's nice to hear. So, I understand you had an unusual family upbringing, which kind of formed your musical future.
What understanding do you have?
Well, from what I saw, apparently you weren't able to watch TV.
Oh yeah, well I was able and I really wanted to.
But very little.
Allowed to.
Limited. Okay.
Yeah, my parents were sort of semi-hippies, I guess you could, whatever that means. But they were educators and they had thought about how they didn't want me to be raised on TV like a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, no commercial radio and no TV growing up.
No radio?
No commercial radio.
What's the difference?
Well, in their opinions, commercial radio is bad and public radio is great.
So you were listening to what, CBC?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's it.
So as far as musically speaking, what influenced you, what got you into music?
Well, they had a lot of records from their own collection, which was mostly classical, but they also had some singer-songwriter music from the 70s, like Cat Stevens and Paul Simon and Gordon Lightfoot and Anne Murray and Joan Baez and a couple Dylan records and things like that.
So mostly singer-songwriters, no rock?
No.
Okay.
They were more into the folk rock kind of thing. And then, so that was really what I listened to the most, because that's what I like the most of their collection. Mm-hmm. And then, but later I kind of realized that in the production of some of those artists were the genres that I've most been drawn to since. Like, for example, with Paul Simon, there's a lot of doo-wop and gospel and R&B stuff in his, and even jazz a little bit in the production of his albums, or the instrumentation.
And with Graceland, some world music?
Yeah, so yeah, that came, definitely.
Yeah.
And then when I was about 8 years old, my mom came home with a Mahalia Jackson album, and that was kind of a seminal moment.
An eye-opener.
It totally was. I was talking to Alan about that not very long ago. Because I just really never heard anyone sing like that. In the sense of I was listening to kind of like these girly voices of people like, I think my parents had a Melanie record, or like they listened to the Seekers and the...
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was nothing compared to Mahalia Jackson.
It's definitely left field.
You couldn't call them both singing, you know. And so that was just, it was really powerful. And the album was, Mahalia Jackson sings the best loved hymns of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And because she was his favorite singer, and apparently he used to call her up in the middle of the night and just have her sing to him on the phone even.
No.
Yeah, for comfort during his very courageous, difficult times.
Right.
And so, anyway, so then after that she recorded this album of his favorite songs. So it was a very powerful album, and but she's a powerful singer anyway. She never just sort of sings, you know, like it's always like an experience. Like, it is. She transcends things when she sings, and it's really incredible. So that really was like, oh, you can sing like that. That's something. So. And then I went on to go to music school and study jazz and blues and funk and R&B, stuff like that.
So you got the whole palette?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
no.
I'm always a student, you know.
Eager to learn.
You never arrive, you're just still learning.
Okay, so you left school, and then the bottom line is what would be the first job you did before you actually got into music?
Well, like many actors and musicians, I've always waited tables. Done
Okay,
that whole thing.
the classic
Yeah,
scenario.
it's not very original. I mean, I had a few other jobs, like bakeries and barista, but that kind of thing.
Okay.
And like a few other weird jobs, but mostly that.
So what made you decide to eventually make the jump and go into music full time?
Well, I always wanted to be full time, so it was just like I'm gonna do this until I don't have to.
So it was a matter of time.
It was a matter of money.
Oh,
It was a
matter of money.
Yeah, it was a matter of being able to afford
Okay.
to quit
Mhm.
the waitressing jobs. So the weird thing about waitressing, waiting tables in the hospitality industry, it's more flexible. You're not just committed to a day job so you can trade shifts around and
Mhm.
pick up more, and get rid of some, and so that you can be flexible and give your music a priority. So that worked for what I did. So if I went on tour, I would give my shifts away. I'd come back from tour and pick up extra one. That whole flexibility thing. So that as the years went by, I did less waitressing and more music until finally there's just like a full takeover.
Great. And when was that?
In 2009.
Fantastic. So I was listening to your music, very interesting, various, diverse, including your vocal delivery. I mean, we're talking the gamut of pop, country, acoustic roots, blues, folk, soul. And meanwhile, all of it. I mean, artists evolve; they always get influenced by other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But as according to your voice, when would you say you actually found your groove?
I'm still looking.
You're still searching.
Well,
No, really?
You always are, but I think that's a really good question. I don't know exactly when. I think it's been difficult kind of liking a lot of different genres because when it comes to the music industry, people want to be able to sort of market you and then put you in a box and pinhole you. So if you change or if you grow or if you experiment or explore, they're like, oh, don't do that because you're this. We need you to be this because we said 6 months ago that you were this. And so I've always sort of not been somebody who would do that. If there's a distance between A to B, I'm more like a little brook that goes kind of like this and gets there, but not a one line. I've not been really been interested in the marketing side.
But isn't that just the point of an artist to be able to multifaceted it, not just always taking the followed path?
I think so, but there's the pressure with the people that want to sell it, that want you to just have this brand and it's this. McDonald's always says Ronald McDonald and the Golden Arch, and if all of a sudden the M was a T instead of an M, then all this, like, what is that? Why do you want to be a T instead? Or, there's something to be said for being consistent when it comes to selling something.
Mm.
And so if you think about artists that are really famous, they stick to a thing for a very long time before they have the artistic freedom to, like Paul Simon is, big influence on me. He did his Paul Simon and Garfunkel thing for a while and made a lot of money and was very successful for his record label before he then went off and did Graceland and then went off and did Rhythm of the Saints and then went off and did a musical and then, did what he wanted to do more, and or Madonna or just anybody, even Taylor Swift, not country at all anymore.
Sting. He's well off that he just goes and does his own thing.
Yeah, but he first had a lot of hits with the Police.
True. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm not interested really in the whole hits thing but.
Well, I have to admit, you have a multifaceted voice. I mean, I've listened to you got different styles of music, which I think, in my opinion, is more interesting than just someone that's, Anyway, that's the way I view it.
Mm. Well, hopefully there's more people like you in the world and less people.
I think there
like
is.
McDonald's.
I think there is.
I think there are too. I mean, I wouldn't have a career if that wasn't true. It's just
Exactly.
a more sort of niche following career than it is a blockbuster career, and I'm fine with that.
Well, they always say it takes about 10 years to actually make a name for yourself.
Right. Well,
You're almost in your 10th year now.
yeah. Better hurry up.
Well,
No pressure.
no. You're on the right track. Where would you say, or what were you doing? Also, where were you, or what were you doing when you first heard your music on the radio?
Oh, I totally remember this. I was in my living room of my house in Edmonton, many houses ago, and my boyfriend at the time was getting ready to go to work, and he's like, "Oh, you're listening to the radio right now," and I was still in bed, and I'm like, "Oh, why don't you let me sleep in?" And there was my song.
So you were kind of half awake.
I was half awake, and it was really weird. It was a weird experience because it's just weird to hear yourself come.
But did it sink in? You knew it was you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it was really funny too because it wasn't a professional recording. It was just a little demo that I had done at school, at music school, and one of the recording students had to do recording projects, and then the performance students had to get some stuff recorded. So we sort of paired up, and I did this recording, but then I sort of used it as a demo to try to get work for myself when I graduated.
Okay.
And the manager that I had at the time worked at this local radio station, which is local, but it does broadcast on the internet globally.
Right.
And
Kind of like us.
well, there you go.
Yeah, we're local and then we're still streaming. Okay. So your first album was released in 2003. Did I get that right?
That's
Okay.
right.
On it is the track Waterfront, which I actually really enjoyed. Great vocal. 2009, you had Close Encounters. Was that a first live album?
Yeah.
Okay. And then 2010, you collaborated with Matt Epp.
Yeah.
I met him a few years ago.
Oh, have you? Okay,
And
cool.
and how did that come upon?
Well, he and I met at a music conference in Ottawa around that time, probably ish, and we got to be friends. We decided to do a little tour together, and then I think we did 2 tours together around in the same year of Canada, and on the first one I think it was, we were in Memphis at another music conference, and we're both Jeff Buckley fans.
Okay.
And the music conference was on a hotel that overlooked the arm of the Mississippi that separates Tennessee from Arkansas. And it's apparently the arm of the river where Jeff Buckley drowned.
Okay.
So we were sort of this high room and overlooking this arm of the river, and we're talking about that, and then in the evenings at this music conference, people just jam in all the hotel rooms and play and do some showcasing as well, but it's all kind of unofficial and pretty loose. And but there's a lot of musicians, and people are just going from floor to floor, and there's I think 2 main floors that have all the music on them. And the elevators there's such a long wait to take the elevators because so many people were trying to go on them. So people started using the stairwells, and in the stairwells it was really echoey.
The acoustics.
The acoustics, right? So we started singing. He plays guitar, as you know, so and we just sort of started singing this melody that was sort of haunting, and then people sort of were using the stairwells, and they would join us for part of it, and we just kept doing it, and people joined us, and I recorded the whole thing on my phone.
Great.
And then we wrote a song around it a few months later. So we wrote a song together. Yeah, it's a long time ago, but yeah, so.
Great circumstances.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of praise from your peers. I mean, I assume that the Canadian music market is pretty close. I think of Ron Sexsmith. You're kind of like you're the musician's musician.
I think so. I don't think I started out like that, but it's come to be that, I think, a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So much so that you now have custom gear.
Shirt, which I wear today.
Okay.
Not bad.
So how did that come about? Custom gear. Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a guy in Frankfurt named Thomas Weissensane, and his product is called Weissensane. That. And I can't remember how he first heard of me. Oh, yes, I can. Anyway, he and his son and a few of his son's friends had this little company called Unsigned Acts, where they would record and film live an unsigned
act. Of course.
in their cellar.
Oh.
And and they would do it using this Weissensane gear, and it's all vintage style analog.
Well, as your T-shirt says, tubes.
It's all tube
Right.
based,
So a very warm sound.
all very warm sounding, and beautiful gear, and it looks great. It's very simple the way it's set up, and
Mm.
he has a lot of customers around the world. And he just had his 40th anniversary as
Great.
a company, and he has some pretty famous customers like ZZ Top and things like that. And he decided to design, and it was a surprise, which he presented to me a couple of years ago on tour,
Mhm.
my own custom designed microphone for my own voice.
Mhm.
So there's one in the world, and I have it for me. And then also preamp for my voice as well.
Mhm.
So, which he presented to me in the last tour, or maybe 2 tours ago. Anyway, recently.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So
it's
there's-
really beautiful. Like, it really is incredible how every microphone is different, and
Every voice is different.
every voice is different. So not all microphones are the best thing for each voice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So there's two sides of Anne. There's Anne solo and there's Anne with band. Describe the challenges both present.
Ooh. Well, the band one is a lot of fun, and it's great for the party vibe and getting people dancing. It's louder and it's more upbeat, and I can do a lot more with the rhythm section because I have one. Then.
Right.
And then I can play a lot more of my funk-based and rhythm-based songs, which is the challenge of playing solo is that I can't do that. Or I have to simplify it a lot and imply the groove, which can be done, but it's not as apparent, and people just don't really, it's not as party vibe when I play solo.
Right, but then again, it all depends on the material.
Yeah, I mean, I still play some.
It always starts with a song.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, like, for example, I'm a big James Brown fan, and there's certain James Brown songs that are the length of one whole side of a record for 20 minutes. They're one song and it's the chord E. And if I just played E solo for 20 minutes,
I wouldn't recommend it.
well, I think people would lose interest.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. No.
I would ask the musician. I would
No.
lose it. Because what makes it interesting is all the different instruments and what they're doing and
Right.
interacting.
Yeah.
So when you can only interact with yourself, it's kind of like it's like having a conversation with only 2 people instead of 5.
So, do you crowdfund your albums?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I haven't. I've been lucky in that I've gotten some grant money from various organizations in Canada for some of my albums, and then I've got some private investors for some of them. Had a label for my last one. So I haven't ever had to do that whole thing yet.
Well, that's some lucky breaks.
But you never know. I have another one coming up, and I haven't
Yeah.
put together funding for it. So
But your latest
Stay
offering,
tuned.
is what, entitled Anybody's Different.
yeah, and that was with a label.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you decide to release an EP? Was that kind of like a teaser?
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry. Today, in this day and age, like, people just release a lot of singles rather than whole albums. When you release an album and 12 songs, say, or 10 at once, typically there's only really attention given to 1 or 2 of them anyway.
The rest kind of get lost.
Yeah, and you pay all this money, you spend all this time
No.
on them, and they just kind of get ignored and forgotten about, and I feel bad for them.
Mhm.
Like I have almost like a personal relationship with myself.
Yeah, that's I've spoken to some artists. I refer to them. So your baby's now out and about,
Yeah.
and what do you think of it? So
Yeah, and it's you know, especially just for the return on investment.
yeah.
Like, so we decided to do kind of a single at once, single until we had 5, and then release the EP.
Mhm.
And then the idea is then do another EP and then release that as one full album and just keep putting content out there on a kind of a regular basis.
Mhm. So I know that I don't know where you're living now, but your living quarters were at one point in a social hotspot where you were living. You got some new songs coming now. Is it like a project or something?
A social hotspot?
Well, I think you was referring to the apartment you had was next to an alleyway where people were going back and forth, and it was kind of like a social hotspot.
Oh, I see what you're
Not in a positive way.
Yeah, I've just never heard it referred to as that, but I can see what you're saying now. Still live there.
Oh, you still live
I still
there?
live there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a house
So was that kind of like the impetus to these 2 tracks that are coming up? It's Happening and Flame?
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
I wrote both of those while I was living there in the
Yeah.
last few years. I've lived there for 10 years now, so definitely have had that whole environment has had an influence on my writing and my point of view.
And so I saw online these are special things. You hooked up with some school students.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, about a year ago, one of the principals who I knew from the neighborhood from a different school, and I had done a few music things at that school.
Mhm.
He now had moved schools to another school that was sort of struggling. A lot of the kids that go to school have come from harsh situations, with home situations and poverty-related things, and he was sort of hired to kind of bring some hope and rejuvenation to the school through the arts, because he himself is a visual artist.
Mhm.
And he had successfully done that in some other schools. So he approached me and said, I'm wondering if you want to be commissioned to write a song that will be rehearsed and performed with our music class, and then at this fundraiser in the springtime. The fundraiser is for all-day kindergarten, because in Canada, kindergarten is subsidized from, I think, age 4, and then you start grade 1 age 5 or 6. But it's only 3 times a week or 2 full days a week, meaning that for some parents it means that they still can only work part-time when their kid is that old. And it also means that kids whose first language isn't English, or who are not getting a lot of education at home, that learning the alphabet and numbers and being read to, and
Mhm.
are enter kindergarten with kids that have had that, and they're already at a disadvantage. So they were realizing that by having all-day kindergarten in some of these neighborhoods, the success rate from there onwards was like almost double, like so much better, that
Mhm.
they were advocating for it. So I said, okay, sure, love to. And then I decided to actually do 2 songs, 2 different groups of students, 2 different schools. And then we released them, one in September and one we're going to release September 6th.
December.
December, thank you.
December.
And then at this fundraiser, there was a guy in the audience, because they invited all these sort of business people and companies that have money
Mhm.
to this fundraiser thing. And one of the people in the audience really, really liked it, and he just wanted it to be recorded, and asked me what that would entail in terms of money. And I gave him a bunch of different price points, saying that my dream one was the big one, which was to record the kids and me together, to pay each one of them,
Mhm.
so they would have a professional experience in the studio, and then also make a music video of the making of the song,
Great.
which he greenlit, which he gave the thumbs up to.
Well, great. I hope that does some good stuff for you. Let me
I
just.
also too. It was really fun.
So, what do you look forward to when you head back home? What's the first thing you do?
Sleep.
Sleep? Okay, beyond sleeping.
Yeah.
When you wake up, what do you do?
Well, in this case, I'm only home for a few days and then I fly to Toronto
Okay.
and start recording another album.
Okay, but put it this way. What do you look forward to when you get back home?
Oh, well, my cat. Seeing my cat.
Your cat.
Yeah. I have a cat who prefers me not to leave.
Which cat doesn't?
Well, there you go. I actually had a dream about him today.
Really?
I had a nap and I keep dreaming about him. Anyways,
That means you got to write a song about your cat.
I think
Just
I
the way
did.
Freddie Mercury did.
His name is Thelonious Monk. My
Thel-
cat.
Okay.
So
All right.
and for a good reason, he plays the piano and he's black and he has a white goatee and a tuxedo and
Mm-hmm.
he's pretty mischievous.
Okay. Has he got soul?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Where were you when you found out that Aretha Franklin had passed?
Oh, that's a good question. Where was I? Oh, I know. I was at home.
You were at home.
Yeah, and I just I got up in the morning and I, my typical routine is to feed my cat and then start some coffee, and then listen to the news while I'm sort of doing all that on the radio, and yeah, that's when I heard it. I was like, it took me a while to sort of sink in. It took a couple of days to really sink in fully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I really wish I would have been able to hear her live
Mm-hmm.
on stage, and I really tried. I had plans to go see her in Toronto a couple years ago and organize my touring around that whole thing because she doesn't come to Canada hardly ever.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't fly anymore. Now she really doesn't.
No. Well, she is flying
Didn't.
right now, but anyway.
Maybe. And singing, I hope.
Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, but then Hurricane Sandy came and she had to cancel that whole tour.
Right.
So.
But a lot of people try to compare you to her and your singing style these days.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, it's really big boots to fill.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always like, oh, could you pick someone not as good, please? But definitely she's an influence.
Uh-huh.
A huge influence when it comes to singing. Different, other people are influential when it comes to writing and
Mm-hmm.
to lyric style, but when it comes to her singing, I really just feel like she knew about singing in some ways that other people just don't.
Mm-hmm.
And timing of when to do what she did, the exact right moment where you just lose it, and yeah, a whole bunch of things like that.
Hope to achieve that someday?
Oh yeah, especially when I was at music school, I remember just listening to her, recording myself, listening to her record, just keeping on, what I really sound like versus what I think I sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Because in your own head, you sound differently because you hear it in your head,
Right.
with your ears next to your throat and
Mhm.
everything, and then that whole thing of what you sound like on an answering machine, you're always surprised, right? And part of learning to be a singer, I think, is to be less and less surprised and sort of learn how to get the sound that you want versus just what happens to come out,
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I have the same feeling when I do a radio show, and a lot of people say, I don't know, I don't hear myself. So, it's
Yeah.
hard to say.
yeah, and it's all part of it. So anyway, I mean, she definitely had a talent and such a long career, and but also is a really courageous person politically, and always kind of did her own thing her own way, which I admire a
I
lot.
wish you the same.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, our last thing would be word association. If I give you a word, what would be the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, it depends what word it is.
Well, you find out. Technology.
Fear. We're not friends.
Okay. Yeah, I'm old school myself. Rain.
Rain. Dreary but replenishing. I know that's three. I'm cheating.
Doesn't matter. It could have more than one answer.
Okay, good.
Nationality.
Oh. Identity and ever changing.
As a Canadian, that would fit. Yeah. Friendship?
Very important.
Very.
Uber important.
Oh, throw some German in there. Okay. We're not talking about taxis, but anyways. So our last word would be travel.
Fun and exhausting. Hence the cold.
Right. Well, Anne, thanks a lot.